Welcome to Psychology Today. I'm your host, Ann Morrow, and thank you for watching. Our show is about bicycling in general and bicycle safety specifically. I hope Psychology Today helps inspire you to ride a bike and to be more mindful of safety. Those of us that volunteer for Psychology Today believe that there is much to celebrate in the Portland metro area, and we endeavor to introduce you to people who help our community of cyclists. And I want to share a quick thank you to our capable crew behind the scenes, volunteers who make our show possible. If those of us here on camera are the talent, they are the brains. As this show is filmed, it's midwinter. And in the Northwest, that may or may not be a good time to ride a bicycle outdoors. And some of you don't care about the weather, you're going to ride your bike regardless. For those of you who are a little more particular, and I include myself in that category, how can we stay at least in reasonable cycling shape if we just can't or won't get on the bike and ride outdoors? So this is kind of the first of a two-part series, and tonight we're going to explore spin classes with Kathleen Hellem and then yoga with Stefan Walz as options to use either exclusively when you're not riding your bike outdoors or maybe in conjunction with riding outdoors. And then the second of this two-part series, we'll talk to some cyclists who train in their homes, use trainers or different things like Peloton or Zwift to keep in shape when they can't ride outdoors. So let's meet Kathleen Hellem, who is a spin instructor from, she works at LA Fitness in Orchards in Washington. Welcome, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. So I always like to hear a little bit of history about people, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm from Seattle, Washington originally, and I've been back in the Northwest since 2003. I have been at LA Fitness almost a decade now, coming up on, as a spin instructor. I like to ride my bicycle a lot. I have one child, and most of my family's here. I am graduating WSU this semester. Is my last full semester, so that's really exciting. Yeah.
So yeah, that whole school thing has been
fun.
It's been kind of infringing on your cycling time sometimes. So.
Maybe not.
So that's been challenging. So what kind of bicycling do you enjoy?
I do road cycling mostly.
And didn't you start out as a mountain bicycling?
Yeah, back in
person?
96 when I was in Arizona, I started mountain biking and got into that for about probably almost a year, and then I switched over to road.
And why did you switch?
Well, partly because I got into an accident mountain biking, but I guess I really enjoy going really fast, and so road cycling met that need for me. And I also really appreciate good pavement. So those two things seemed more reasonable. I mean, I'm not against mountain biking. I do like it, but I do prefer road cycling.
Yeah.
It's just something that I found on my own through trial and error that was where my sweet spot was for me.
Yeah. So road biking, what's your favorite ride right now?
Well, right now, my favorite ride is we're starting a 12-week, 10 to 12-week training series for Reach the Beach for American Lung Association. That starts on February 22nd. So really excited about that. We'll be hopefully helping people reach their cycling goals. And so that's just a big, huge commitment for me every Saturday. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to maybe some of the bitter cold mornings, but I got the gear, so I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Just helping people reach their goals, and maybe they're not trying to do a full century. Maybe they're just trying to do from Amity to Pacific City. Everybody's got different goals, and so it'll be nice to be able to be inclusive to everybody that shows up and try to help them meet those goals.
Yeah. And I think a few years back you saw a need that so Portland Bicycling Club, formerly Portland Wheelman, was leading those rides, and you saw a need that, like you say, not everybody wants to do the big, hard century. They just want to commit to a lesser mileage and a slower pace.
Exactly.
And so you tried to help out, and then now I've kind of joined you in that. So we have Dick Weber, who leads the big, hard stuff, and we try to have a slower, shorter version and then we just ride from Amity ourselves.
Still hard work, but yes. But that's my most exciting ride right now.
You're right. I'm looking forward to that. So full disclosure, and maybe you can already tell that Kathy and I are friends, so we know each other pretty well. So you and I do ride together a lot, and I met you through your spin class at LA Fitness, and you were in Hazeldale, not Orchards then. So you said you'd been doing that for about a decade. How did you become a spin instructor in the first place?
I was looking for an outlet. I was working full-time doing mortgage processing, and I was looking for an outlet to have free membership, really. I know that sounds kind of... And that was how that all
nice
came
perk.
together.
Yeah.
I didn't want to pay gym dues. I didn't want to be a Planet Fitness person because I just wanted more if I needed it to be available, like group classes. And so I interviewed with LA Fitness, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been there a long time and have your followers, and you know a lot of people through that.
Sort of.
Through that job, which
Yeah,
yeah,
that's for sure.
and you're right. That is a nice perk where I walk in and have my little badge, and you just go, "I work here."
It's fun. I know. It's kind of fun to walk in and just say,
So let's talk about these spin classes. Why don't you start by describing what a spin class is?
Well, it's an evolving sport in a sense, in that when I first started instructing spin classes, I really think that the high intensity interval training wasn't really a big, huge thing then, like in 2010. I mean, I think it was starting to pick up at that point, but mostly it was just you go in and you hammer and then you leave, right? And that's all good and well, but that is really, as time has proven, I have been able to kind of morph into a different style of instruction with everyone, and that is high intensity interval training. So we work to recover, and that's like one of the first things that will come out of my mouth before we even start class. We work to recover. So you know, my expectation is that the individuals will work as hard and as fast and like go all out, go big, fast bursts. You know, 30 seconds to 45 seconds to a minute, depending on where I'm at in the routine, and then drop it. You know, drop their paddle, get water. You know, have an active recovery, so that, and then we take that full minute, depending on how hard we work, to recover. And I find that people really enjoy that a lot better. There are still some people, because I do sub classes from time to time, who still have the old school trainers. I mean, because every cycling instructor brings something different to the table. So, so it can be kind of alarming to some people who are used to the instruction of where we go in and we hammer really hard and no breaks and you can't talk, and you know, that's not how, you know, I don't discourage people from chatting.
Yeah.
I think it's actually good that they have that kind of camaraderie with each other, and I've noticed a lot of friendships form, and it's kind of like they're the secret gym buddy without being this.
Right, not an official gym buddy, but they kind of keep each other honest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll see you Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I know that not all bikes, stationary bikes, are created equal, but describe the bikes that you work with.
Well, LA Fitness has sort of different models at each gym. The bikes that I'm working with now have no computer on them, which the computer is really not really, I mean, it just kind of tells you your RPMs. Every bike is calibrated differently, so that can almost be confusing to people, because they'll come to class and they'll get on one bike and they're at level 12, and then they'll come back next week, they'll be on another bike, and for whatever reason, it's like it's killing them, and they don't understand that it's not the bike, it's just a computer. Wear a heart rate monitor, wear your wristband or watch or whatever you have, because it's, or try to remember to get on the same bike so that you don't get discouraged, because you got to be really careful, because that can be discouraging to the people.
Yeah.
The bikes at Orchards, where I'm at now, don't have computers, so we are literally on a raw workout.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the clock starts now.
I see. And then you play music and kind of guide them through this routine of intervals.
Yep, I stare at the clock, and sometimes the clock is not right, or it sticks, and so I mean I have to kind of like wait for it to get past a certain. We need to get a new clock in there, but I live by the clock.
Yeah.
Like that's, you know, how I run the class. And I try to encourage people, because everybody that comes in there is at different levels of fitness. So that's like a really huge thing. So, you know, I do offer, when we do a full minute interval, for those that wish to cut out at 30, I call it at 30
okay.
so that you have an option to recover. And for those that want to continue for longer, they can, and then we call it. I call it then, and then we get all recover. So there's, you know, I try to be inclusive to everybody's needs, because everybody's at a different level.
Yeah.
Not everybody's ready to just hop up and ride out of the saddle, and it's fine. And I always tell them that too. That's the biggest thing, is just making sure that, you know, people feel welcome. There's no rules. I always say, like, my morning class is at 5:45 a.m. So it's kind of early, but like, I do not comb my hair when I go to work. Like, it's just, we don't. And if you want to, that's fine. But I try to make sure that people feel really comfortable just coming in there and being themselves.
The
You don't
important
got
thing
to
is you're
smile.
there.
You don't got to look cute. No one cares. You know, if you don't want to stand up, if you need to call it at 30 seconds, whatever it is, let's do this. And it seems to work pretty good. And
Good. So let's, having talked about the spin classes, let's talk about some of the differences between spin classes and riding a bicycle outdoors. So what about the intensity when you, between the two?
so it's really, there is a difference. While outdoors, I can still do intervals. And certainly I can play that game by myself, or with a group if they want to do that too. Indoors is more of a, you have this specific time set aside and you want to make the most of it, right? So what's our intention and how are we going to meet that? So indoors is a little bit more intense, kind of like cyclocross, where you have only 45 minutes to ride the course. So you got to do your best in that 45 minutes. Well, it's the same thing inside a spin class. You know, your time is, it's not like you're out riding your bike and you got time to kill. Hey, I just think I'll just mosey along. It's more, you know, it's more guided than, say, outdoors. So you're going to, I mean, depending on, a lot of people wear heart rate monitors, are able to access, you know, how they did, if it's better than the last class, or however they need to push themselves. And I try to encourage them to remember that they have themselves to answer to. Right? So, I mean, get what you need, right? Because you've only got this much time. I always try to bring it back to time inside class so that people feel that urgency. And they do work out really pretty hard. It's safe. You're not like, you know, you're not having to keep a bike up because it's a stationary bike.
Yeah. And that is, I know I talked to a woman who, can't train for her half Ironman thing outside right now because it's wet, it's slippery. So you can't ride really hard outside right now because it's yucky outside. You can mosey along outside right now, but training and riding really hard, it's much safer in the gym, in a spin class. You're not going to slip in the mud and fall. Let's talk about saddle time. Do you stand up on a stationary bike?
Yes.
And how do you direct that too?
Yeah, usually with that, I find I like to, and music's really important too, and kind of motivating your guest to, and also having music that everybody likes, because some people like.
That's impossible.
I try to do the best I can. I try to have a really diverse playlist so that I can address the people who like good old time rock and roll, like from the 60s and 70s and 80s. I do a lot of 80s. And then I also do more all the current playlists that are out right now. So I have this Fit Radio app that I use, basically, that kind of makes all that happen. And so then nobody can really say, you're amazing. Because you only, I mean, so yeah, it seems to go pretty good. And I really, honestly, once people are in there, my main platform for music is my beats are 130 beats per minute. So at that juncture, that's what I'm really looking for, is that 130 beats per minute, because that's the actual rate that I'm trying to keep you ahead of the music in that way. So I wouldn't go in there and play really slow music.
Yeah. What about hill climbing though?
Hill climbing is tough.
I mean, the music and the hill climbing is going to be a slower pace.
It is, yeah.
I think Enya.
Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing too, is with classes and with the music, I'm able to guide the class in an organic way, not in, like I don't have this book that I okay, we're doing this and we're doing that. I don't run a class that way. That to me doesn't seem like fun. So I don't do that. I have my own fitness goals I'm trying to meet, and I'm here to share what I can with everyone else. And so I'm depending on, and I know a lot of music. I listen to music. I've listened to music my whole life. So I'm able to kind of easily guide the class and what we're doing. You know, if we're hill climbing, and then I'll keep us up for a while, and usually what I'll do is have us do, cap out at like a 20-second hammer, bring it type mentality. So, and it works good. It seems to, people are surprised. I mean, I can only gauge by what the feedback is that I get.
Yeah.
And I know that people who do wear heart monitors, who are used to the general hammer hour fest, and I'm not a hammer hour fest, I'm a work to recover person, they're astonished at how many more calories they burned, and they actually got to recover. And maybe talk to their person next to them and talk about this and talk about that. And okay, clock started.
And then you hit it again.
Yeah, it's a neat thing.
So how have your spin classes benefited you personally?
Besides the free membership?
Yes, I mean like physically for your own cycling purposes.
You know, it's interesting, and that's really, that's a good question. I am shocked at how they benefit. What you do in the class and how that plays out on the streets is amazing. Because for example, I mean, I don't remember which Reach the Beach it was I did. It was a while back. And I had only been doing what I do today. It's just those 2 classes a week. That's all I do indoors. Unless like maybe once in a while if it's raining really bad, I'll hit up someone else's class. But typically I just do my own. But I do know that the results that I had out on the road from just going twice a week were pretty impressive. I was passing like a lot of people.
Yeah. So
people half my age. Like my one Reach the Beach I did, I completed it from Conestoga Middle School to Pacific City. It took me 6 hours and 19 minutes.
So that was a full century that year.
That's just from spin class.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't from doing any other. So that was pretty good. And in fact, I have struggled to meet that time since. I don't know why that. I have too many friends now.
Yeah, you keep getting
I keep talking, hey, how you doing?
So let's see. We really talked about the recovery and the intervals and stuff. And you kind of touched on this, but as an instructor, or do you think other instructors, as someone coming to a class, do I have to do everything the instructor says, or can I just kind of, boy, I'm not ready to hammer fest here or whatever. I can kind of do my own thing?
Absolutely. This is your workout. When you come here, this is your workout. I'm here to guide, but I can't make anybody do anything, nor do I want to. I mean, we have a lot of people sometimes that come in that are training for a specific event. What does that mean? That means that they have something in mind. They just don't want to be alone, but they want to be with people, but they don't want to do what we're doing because they're training for some like half Ironman or whatever they're doing, right? So they have this routine that they do, and we're happy to have them there. And I'm really clear about that, to listen to your body and also acknowledging. And I really try to acknowledge that, and whoever does go to spin class, know that everybody that's in there is not going to be at each other's fitness levels. So when you're in there, you're doing it really just for you.
Yeah.
This is about your relationship with yourself and your working out and what that looks like. And it doesn't really matter what anybody else is doing. And the instructors usually are pretty good. I don't really know. I just know about myself.
You haven't been, right.
For the most part, it takes time. And especially when you first go to a spin class, you're not going to get up out of the saddle and ride like everybody.
Yeah.
And I always remember, I consciously remember to tell, don't even worry about it. You just started. These people have been in here doing this for, so if you try, if you don't like it, you can do it in the saddle. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Not most of my training is out of saddle anyway. Most of it's in the saddle. Because that's what we usually do outside anyway. We're sitting in our saddle, right? So I wouldn't want to spend a whole entire class being out of saddle.
No.
That doesn't seem...
No, that wouldn't be very effective. So I really like that, because I kind of think that could be an obstacle, is people thinking, well, I can't even do that. But you don't have to do it that first time. And if you get off your bike at, partway through and leave, that's okay too. Just come back and try again. So what about words of encouragement? Do you have any words of encouragement to talk to people that maybe are thinking about spin classes and are not coming out for you?
Well, the first thing is when you first start doing spin class, your saddle is going to be sore. I mean, your bum's going to be maybe for the first month. And that seems to be problematic for a lot of people because they don't like the way that feels. It hurts. And then they come back to the next class and it even hurts worse because a couple of days have gone by and they're really, it just hurts. So some workarounds for that are padded bike shorts. Certainly not everybody wears them. I do because I have a bunch of them. And so that's just how I go to class. I usually just wear a t-shirt though. I don't wear a bike jersey to class because it's really casual. There's no reason for me to wear a bike jersey to class. And sometimes people do, and that's nice. But ultimately, your comfort is you have to work for it. It's not just going to happen because you go to class. I mean, you have to do your time in the saddle to build your own personal sit bones and muscles in there so that when you go and sit on that saddle, it doesn't hurt anymore. That takes about a month. Yeah. Usually, I think.
Good point. So you got to advocate for yourself. Maybe ask for some help from the instructor on advice. And I know my husband wears gloves, and probably hardly anybody else wears gloves to spin class, but he's more comfortable that way. So you have to do what works for you,
right?
And get that bike adjusted so that it fits you properly, and ask the instructor for help.
Make sure the instructor is making sure your bike is fitted properly, or you can hurt your knees if your hips are rolling, and just there's all kinds of, if your saddle's too low, that's going to hurt your knees. If your saddle's too high, there's just little, and all of the instructors, at least I think as far as I know, have been trained to kind of keep an eagle eye out on that to make sure they can kind of help people with that. Because if you are not set up properly, then you really are going to hurt, and you're not going to want to come back. And how's that going to build a class?
Well, thank you for joining us, and thanks for sharing your expertise with us. I really appreciate that. I think it's a really good option for people exclusively, like you said, in your training for Reach the Beach, and in conjunction with, and you do it all year. So you're riding outdoors in the summer, for the most part, all year, and then you're doing spins. So it's a great activity. So I encourage everybody to look into it.
Thank you.
So thanks for joining us. So we're going to go to a quick video, a safety video, and we'll watch that, and then we'll come back and we'll have our second guest, and we're going to talk about something a little more relaxing, or at least some of the time, and that's yoga. So let's watch the video, and then we'll come back with our second guest.
Bike safe, bike smart. Hi, my name is Xander.
And my name's Elizabeth.
Over the next few minutes, we're going to have some fun and talk about some pretty important stuff.
Some of it you've heard before, but it never hurts to hear it again.
And again.
And again. So here we go. Did you know that just falling off your bike is enough to get a serious brain injury? So play it safe. Wear your helmet every time you ride. It can reduce the risk of head injury by up to 85%.
And that's a lot. The helmet should be snug on your head and sit flat. The strap should form a V under your ear, and the chin strap should also be snug. 2 fingers should fit in between your eyebrow and your helmet.
Also, make sure your helmet meets safety standards. Look for a sticker that says CPSC. This stands for the Consumer Product Safety Commission.
All the stuff we talked about today is common sense.
But you still need to think. Be courteous, and be predictable by always riding in a straight line.
Wear a helmet. And follow the rules of the road. Ride with traffic on the right side of the road. Ride single file.
Obey traffic lights and traffic signs. Check behind you before turning. Use proper hand signals.
Stop, look left, right, then left again before entering a street. And use caution at an intersection.
Make eye contact with other drivers. Be careful around parked cars and watch for objects in your path.
And at night, be seen to be safe.
Never assume that motorists or pedestrians will see you. Remember, bikes are smaller than cars, and if there's a crash between the two, any guesses who will win?
That's all the time we have. So remember these 4 words. Bike safe, bike smart.
All right, welcome back to Psychology Today, and that's a good little safety video to remind all of us about the importance of helmets on our heads and just some kind of common sense information about riding your bike out on the street. We're going to switch gears from spin classes to yoga here in a moment. First, and we'll meet our second guest, but first I want to encourage viewers to get out and ride, and if the wind and the rain are discouraging to you, try to utilize some of these alternatives that we're discussing, both on this show with the spin classes and yoga, and then on our next show we're going to talk about some different kind of training that you might want to do at home. So as an incentive, I want to remind you that there's a lot of great bicycle events coming up. Monster Cookie is coming up in April. Reach the Beach, which we talked about with Kathleen, in May. The Gorge Ride in June, Seattle to Portland in July, just to mention a few. So those are maybe goals or objectives you might have in your cycling life. And also there's Portland's infamous Pedalpalooza throughout the whole month of June. And so there's just lots of fun things to join in on, and we can be getting ready for those in the gym or in our homes. So let's meet our next guest. I've got Stefan Walz here.
Hi, Ann.
Hi. Well, thanks for joining me.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to talking to you. I told you my hip flexors are still complaining from last night's yoga class. So
you sure that wasn't
I'll
STP that you did last year?
I didn't do the STP.
You recovered from that completely? Okay, good to hear.
So I'm going to start with you two, asking you just a little bit of history about
Sure.
yourself, please.
Well, I was raised in Clark County, across the river, and I left and joined the military when I was 19, and then we traveled a little bit. I've been married for 27 years. Wow. In that span of time, I was in Tucson, Arizona for 15 years, and I've been married to my wife. Did I say I've been married already?
Yeah,
yes.
well, to somebody, yeah.
And we have two grown children. They're 20 and 18, so that's where I am now.
Good for you. So I met you through yoga class,
Yes.
just like Kathleen at LA Fitness.
Yes, you're both regulars on Monday nights.
Yeah, try to be. Love your class.
Thank you.
What's the role of the bicycle in your life right now?
Right now, it's collecting dust. Right?
You're a fair weather rider?
No, I mean, it's a long story. But right now they're hanging up on the racks. I get out occasionally when the sun breaks. But it's mostly for fitness. I rode a lot and commuted. I've kind of done all aspects of it: mountain bike, cyclocross, commuting and training. So the bike kind of covers all genres for me.
But right now it's kind of on the back burner.
Well, I did go to yoga class on Sunday because we had a sunbreak in the morning, so I rode to class and then back.
Yeah.
But nothing, I'm not dumping any big watts.
Okay.
I go to spin class twice a week.
Okay.
You know.
And you teach a spin class
Yes.
too, don't you?
I also teach spin as well.
How did you initially get into biking?
Well, I'm a child of the 80s, so it was how we got around. And I delivered newspapers on it.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
The Columbian? Mm-hmm. So did my son.
Did he?
Yeah.
Nice. And we survived,
Yes,
right?
Yes. We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, we should. So, it started there, and then I remember the first time I took my mom's 10-speed Raleigh out somewhere down by the Columbia River, and I hit like this lactic acid Just drooling, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And then I didn't discover it again until I moved to Tucson in 1997, and my wife and I just had one car, and it was just so easy to get around in the city on the bike, and the weather is perfect. So that's when I really dove in, and then from there it's just taken off.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about Tucson. So you wrote a book, Tucson Spokes.
Yes.
And it's a photo collection of the Tucson cycling community, and it was published in 2012.
Oh, yes.
So what was the epiphany you had to write this book?
Well, at the time I was finishing art school at the University of Arizona, and we were in our senior project. And most of the projects I were doing were bike related because we lived near campus. So I was riding to work because I worked on campus, and then I would ride to class, and then I'd ride back to work, and then I'd ride home. And I was training on the streets, twice a week on the weekends, group rides, all this good stuff. You know how cycling is. And I kept seeing these people like repeatedly. I'd be like, man, that's an interesting person, or I see them every Tuesday morning at 5:45 on the same road. And my friend who I was training with, who also co-published a book, Chris Mooney, is a commercial photographer, and he had this huge network. So I wanted to do it as a senior project, but I didn't do it. I did a bicycling jersey instead. And then when I graduated from art school and I was working, and I wanted to do it. So over the course of 18 months, I talked Chris into going out in the desert with expensive equipment, shooting people repeatedly, and then through that, we self-published. I did all the design work. My wife's an editor. She did the editing, and we paid, we published it. We did a 400 run, and we marketed it and did everything ourselves.
It's really a cool book. It really is. And like I told you, so it's just expressive of how people that bicycle are our friends because we bicycle. And there's just a lot of great people, most of whom in the Portland metro area have been on Psychology Today. We've just had a lot of great people. And I wanted to quote this. This is from Jimmy. How do you say his last name?
Jimmy Riccatello.
Riccatello, who is he wrote the foreword. He said, over time and many, many miles on two wheels, I've come to realize that Tucson's roads and trails provided me with an education, perspective, friendships, and health that money can't buy. That's part of the beauty of Tucson. Tucson is cycling, and the community is so developed and sincere and welcoming that anyone who throws their leg over a bicycle for the first time is made to feel special here.
Amen, right?
So that is just, that's just true, though, across the board, I think. There's also this Martha Tatalik. And she has ridden over 15,000 miles through the 50 states. She's never owned a car. Yeah. And she's not, not that she's old, but this is 2012, not a young person either. So no car her whole life.
Yep.
And DJ Birch.
DJ, yes.
And he says, cycling has given me many things, friends, memories, self-fulfillment, and peace of mind. So again, just sentiments that many people might express. Yes. And then there's, kind of a sad, I don't know if they can show, but, the ghost bikes. Yeah. And we, in different communities, there's a day in the spring where we all ride and remember these people. So certainly it's not all fun and games, but it's a really cool book, and I really enjoyed it. A lot of our Portland Bicycling Club people go down to Tucson this time of year.
Yeah,
and,
for good reason, right?
So I'm going to donate this to Portland Bicycling Club's library because I think a lot of them, and I shared it with them at the club meeting, they got a kick out of it. I think they'd enjoy looking it over more carefully.
Yeah.
So, cool.
Lastly, I will say a lot of the content from that book came from those people that we photographed. So it wasn't about us, it was about the community.
Exactly. And you really I felt like you really brought that out as best you can in a quick little...
Yeah, we could have gone 18 years and then book. I mean, the same thing in Portland, Minneapolis.
Exactly.
I mean, the cycling communities are just huge in certain areas, and you could go for years.
And I just never been to Tucson, but I feel like I know these people because you shared them with us. Thank you. So you are a yoga teacher.
Yes.
Do I call you a yogi?
Sure, or you call me Stefan.
So how'd you get into yoga? What appeals to you about yoga?
Well, I mean, it started in the 90s. You know, I remember distinctly something on the Oprah network with some teacher, and it was like a 45-minute thing. And then we'd rent videos from the library, VHS tapes, that's how old I am. And, you know, we would do these things in the living room, and I thought just like, wow, you would just feel better, you'd sleep better. So it evolved actually as I was cycling and getting older, you know, as I moved into the 30s, it's all like, wow, you can recover better, your muscles get stronger, you work on your breath as well as your mental state, because yoga is more than just the physical aspect of the philosophy. So that's how it all kind of started.
And you seem to really have a deep understanding of it. You're really amazing. I love the way you teach. So tell us a little bit about the different styles of yoga.
Right. So, I mean, yoga in the Western world, we just do a lot of the physical movement, the asana, which is translated means just sitting poses. And we've taken that and we've kind of morphed into these different, I don't know, labels or types of classes. People have probably heard of hot yoga, right? Where you do the same postures over the course of 60, 90 minutes. And then there's things like vinyasa yoga where you move with every breath. You don't hold the posture too much. I was trained in an alignment-based yoga class where we focus on like the anatomy more, how your body works, and then you get into a posture or pose, and then you deepen. And then there's things like yin yoga, which is where you get into a pose and you hold it for like 6 to 8 minutes, and you have props hold you up. There's a whole slew of different types of yoga, especially here in the United States.
Kind of like international food, where we've Americanized it and tweaked everything, so it's not really what it was originally. But but we like it all the same.
I sure do. That's right.
So what's your philosophy or approach to teaching yoga?
Well, I try to make it fun first and foremost, because people are there voluntarily. But after that, it really is a focus on your body, your mind, and connecting all of that together. And then, of course, I was taught in an alignment-based system, so that's what I know best. And I try to do continuing education on that, learn more anatomy, and then do classes on my own rather than teach, because sometimes when you teach, you just kind of get in a zone. You need to go and maybe take someone else's class and discover something different. But yeah, you know, recognizing also the people that you have in the class and not pushing them too far. Or if you know that you have a room full of people that continually attend the same time, that you know kind of where their boundaries are and where you can push them.
And I do like the way you kind of include anatomy a little bit in your classes to help us understand what we're helping and, you know, what we should be feeling a little bit.
Being aware of the body.
As
we go through class, rather than just, you know,
just up and
jump
down
around and do Zumba, stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with Zumba, of course.
Exactly. But we're there for yoga.
Yes.
That's what we want. So let's apply some of the benefits of yoga to cycling.
Okay.
And so generally, yoga helps ease tightness, creates core strength, and helps align the spine. So what poses might help us accomplish that? So poses to maybe help increase strength.
Sure. I'm going to say just outright, any yoga will help a cyclist. Just because we get in this position where we're in one posture with the spine bent, the neck forward, and our legs are in that same position, going and going and going. So we wonder why we have tight hamstrings and tight knees, and our IT band right here on the side of the leg just is working well with us. So any yoga is helpful to a cyclist, but if you want to learn more things like twist, or if you want to deepen and stretch more, twist to get into the spine, right? Because obviously our back as cyclists get tight. So twists are good. Any of the sun salutation flows where you just kind of breathe the arms up and then you fold forward and you go through, you know, there's different variations of sun salutations, but those kind of cover everything. And then anything that'll get into the hamstrings to strengthen and lengthen those, because those get weak as we do a bunch of cycling. And the breath work,
Yeah.
I think kind of gets a back seat for yoga because I remember distinctly one of my friends was talking when I was in Tucson how yoga would help me when I was swimming. I was training for triathlon at the time, and it was all like I was drowning in the pool. She's like, well, yoga will help with that. And it really does. If you can take your time to focus on the breath and expand your lungs and then maintain, your breath pace, that can apply on the bike as well.
And I think, maybe not a good contrast, but a lot of us have desk jobs
Yes.
where we're just sitting and we're never taking a deep breath. We're just shallow breathing all day long. We're never moving much of anything.
Yeah.
So kind of the same thing, we're always in the same position, and to just move your shoulders, your spine, your everything, really, there's just really a lot of
I
benefit
think I said
there.
this last night, maybe I didn't, but I was taking a class on Monday morning, and the instructor said that motion is nutrition for the body.
You did say that last night, yeah.
And there's something to that because we wonder why we can sit for 8 hours or 2.5, 3 hours binging something, and then we get up and our knees pop. It's all like, well, you haven't moved them in so long, and that's why they're releasing tension. So motion is great for the body.
Yeah, what a mess we're making of our bodies, because we're so inactive. So, and what about core strength? How does core strength benefit a cyclist, and how does yoga help your core?
Sure. Well, we talk about the core, and just recently I took an anatomy class, and it's like we think of the core as just our ab muscles, right? Which is true, but there's muscles also deeper down at the base of our spine, and if we can think about engaging those and strengthening those through postures or any other work that you do, will obviously take any tension off the backside where our spine is, where we, as cyclists, we might fold over if we're really arrow, or some of us are just kind of commuters that are upright. But core strength can, I think, help us relieve tension in the spine, especially the lower spine.
And flexibility and posture. I know at my age, see, just lifting your leg up and over the bike is a big deal.
You have a recumbent yet?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Yeah, that can be a challenge, right? Well, flexibility is just for any athlete. If you don't want to stretch and all that stuff, well, then you're taking your chances with injuries and whatnot. And yoga is just a way to increase the function of our body, right? Because our form is to walk around, to stand upright. But if you get a yoga class, then you can focus and get your function to work better. As far as, what was the other thing?
Just flexibility
and posture. Yeah, right? So I tell this people, and I think you've been in class too, where I say you can just do yoga standing in line somewhere. Yeah. You can just rotate your pelvis, you can pull your shoulders back, you can dip your head, you can push your spine back, and just repeat that. And that will work on your posture. And before you know it, if you do it long enough or an extended period of time, you might actually find that you're standing up straighter. And then, of course, if you get off your phone.
Well,
maybe you get rid of your phone.
Made that contrast too.
Yeah, I do talk about that quite a bit. But it's easy enough. It's just a matter of having the discipline and the toolkit to do it on your own.
Yeah, where it's just kind of comes naturally that you're integrating that. How about balance? We talked to Kathy about, a stationary bike. You're out on a real bike. You kind of have to be able to balance.
You do. And in yoga, there's certain postures where you can balance on your hands or your head, and that's a little more difficult for people. Or you can do something as easy as taking the legs up the wall, balancing on your spine, or just taking a shortened lunge where you have both feet flat, and you'll find that you have to, you're not on a tightrope, but there's balance there as well, which is great for cycling and just in life.
Yeah.
As we get older, if we have trips or falls, that can be hazardous to us.
So you talked about breathing. We kind of try to take slower, deeper breaths when we're cycling, maybe going up a hill. The whole breath thing can be important. If you don't focus at all on your breathing, it can really be harder to climb the hill.
Yeah, you can redline real quick. Right?
Yeah. And so I know that one thing I had gotten out of the habit of was just like filling my diaphragm with air, because I'd sit at a desk and work. I don't need to fill my diaphragm with air, right? I'm just so. Talk to us a little bit about breathing then.
Yeah, in yoga, it's called pranayama, which is the life force, right? Which is breath. And sometimes we take it for granted because I say a lot in classes to like keep breathing, right? I might harp on it too much, but how often during the day do we actually stop breathing, right?
Yeah.
It's usually when we're surprised. You know, we might hold our breath for a moment, but sometimes when we get into physical tense moments, we think that holding the breath is going to help us, where it doesn't. If we can think about an inhale, drawing energy in, and then an exhale, expanding that energy out, then that's great for yoga, but then you can apply it to the bike too. You might know when you're getting outside your comfort range on a sprint or a hill and you're breathing too heavy, and do you have the lung capacity maybe from yoga to expand and focus on that breath, or at least slow down and get to a comfort zone where your breath is maintainable.
Yeah, yeah. And just the idea of, like, you in yoga too, you kind of open up your chest instead of getting all tense
just
and crunched in.
by expanding your ribs, you expand more lung space, more air goes in, as opposed to where we just sort of
Yeah, and,
Right.
and tense up.
tense. Yes, don't want to be tense.
And yoga, I think, can help prevent injuries to some extent, and or be part of treatment or recovery. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. You know, I often have new students come up to me at the gym or wherever I'm teaching, and they're like, "Yeah, I've got this wrong with me," and I'm like, "Oh, you know, I would have liked to known that at the beginning of class." But they say, "Well, my doctor told me to come to yoga because it's the best thing for me." And then in a workshop recently, it's true, you know, because you can go into yoga and just go to your edge, and it's okay to stop and sit down, right? There's some places where that's not, I wouldn't say permissible, but sometimes you don't want to just stop and, you know, relax. Whereas in yoga you can.
Yeah.
And if you're a beginner, my yoga instructor has great advice that if it's your first class or you're learning, just do half of what you can do, because then you can always expand and grow on that, which is great for recovery and injuries and whatnot. Healing.
And I think all of us are a little competitive, and I think that philosophy it took a little while for me, and I'm not that competitive, to absorb that, to just listen to my body, just do what works for me.
Right.
The next person might be doing something totally different. Doesn't matter.
It does not.
What am I doing?
Exactly.
And so what can I do today? And like you're often saying, on this side of your body, maybe you're doing, and on the other side of the body, you
Could be
might feel
completely
totally
different. Right.
So it's really interesting and helpful to just let it go. And I know
Yes.
some of the yoga instructors say, oh, the first class I did, I pretty much just laid on the mat the whole
Right.
class.
Right.
And that's okay.
It
You're
is.
there. And just slowly ease into it.
Yes.
And that goes contrary to, I think, what most of us have ever
Like your
learned.
first group ride, right? It's all
Yeah.
like, they're just going to drop you. Goodbye. You'll see you at the coffee shop. Right. It's
You
not
can
gonna-
find
that
us.
one- Exactly.
But yoga, it's all, we don't care. We're glad you're here.
Yes. The onus is on you and your practice in your body.
Yeah, on that particular day.
Amen.
So, and on that note, one thing I've really learned is to just kind of be present in the moment, appreciate that I'm there at that moment. And then that kind of does go into cycling, that on cycling days I might be in a certain state, good or bad.
Yeah.
And to just accept that. This is not going to be a fast day. This is not going to be, whatever. And just accept where I am.
Yeah. Enjoy the moment.
Yeah,
Yes.
enjoy the journey and who I'm with and all that. And I wanted to mention too, the kind of off topic, but to do cat-cows on the bike, if you're on the bike for a long
sure,
time,
yeah.
like you're saying, to just get that little
Spinal flexion and
Yeah.
extension, bringing it in. Yeah.
makes
you
a
can find
world
some
of
fluid
difference.
movement.
Yeah,
It does.
Yeah, really relaxes and energizes, kind of all at the same time.
I think Kathleen's going to start doing that in spin class. She's probably going to start having people stand up.
So I have to say that your class tends to have more women in it than men. Although you have a few men, but more than some other classes maybe. So it seems to me, and it's my experience, that men tend to minimize stretching to some extent and maybe don't do that kind of thing. Do you find that to be true, and how would you encourage men to try yoga?
That's a tough question. You can't I mean, you can lead a horse to water, right? I won't even finish that cliche. Because men, and I know because I'm one of them, they can be stubborn. Sometimes you just have to find the proof in the pudding. You have to find a success story that works for you, somebody that you've met that maybe yoga has changed their outlook, their life, their physical fitness. Sometimes it's just a matter of like going with your spouse or your significant other and just trying it because they want you to go. So those are the kind of encouraging words I can give if guys want to try it. Otherwise, don't think that the first one you go to is the end-all, be-all of yoga, right? Because there's different types, there's different studios, there's different teachers. You're going to have to find one that fits you, what you like, and if you are interested in it, don't think that the first one's going to be the best of the worst, I guess. You know, try a couple different things. The hot yoga that my wife goes to, it's 50-50. There's just as many guys in there as women. Yeah. And I think it's because it's like that, oh, this is, you know, it's hard. Hot yoga is difficult. So I think that guys kind of go towards that higher difficulty.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I know you're just kind of hypothesizing here, but it is kind of interesting that I don't see as many men, and I don't know why, because I think it's beneficial for all humans.
Yes.
No matter what we're doing, even if we're not cyclists, it seems like a good thing.
You know, it's interesting because most of the guys that do come on a regular basis are older and they're wiser and they know that yoga can help. It's been said to me many times by several men that they're just trying to reverse the aging process. So maybe some of us guys just need to grow up first before we experience yoga. Maybe.
Well, you've got all kinds of little hypotheses here. So you mentioned there's lots of different kinds of yoga, and like with spin classes or anything, instructors are going to be a little different. And so the idea that maybe we experiment with things.
Yeah, just like I said, you can try a different place, a different studio, a different teacher. You don't want to commit yourself to just one place for 30 days and then do the same thing unless you know for sure that you like it. Like a lot of times, I think it was the Thursday or the Monday night class, I can't remember which one, but it was just all like when I first started teaching there last year, it was just, I was the only guy, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I kept telling people then in class, I said, does anybody notice that there's no other guys in here? So like, can you bring your husband next weekend? And people actually started to do that.
Oh, cool.
A handful of them did. And now we have a spattering of guys, and that's good.
Yeah.
It's worked out well. I don't know if it's because there's a guy up there teaching or not, but
it probably helps.
Could be.
Some. I don't know. Because I know sometimes women like to just do all women bike rides or whatever.
True.
I mean, sometimes we just feel more comfortable with people that look like us.
Right.
For whatever reason.
Yes.
Is there any particular style of yoga that is more or less beneficial for cycling, or you kind of give them an equal rating?
Yeah, it just depends on you as a cyclist. If you want to get stronger, if you want to have it part of your training routine, you know what I mean? If you're committed to doing 15 to 20 hours a week on the bike and you want to create more flexibility and breath work, then can you dial in 2 to 3 to 4 hours of yoga in that? I will say that the strongest season I ever had on the bike, I was doing a vinyasa class in Tucson, and I was doing a lot of miles as well, but I was going like at least 4 times a week, and my back didn't hurt. I just felt really strong, and it was, I'm convinced it was because of the yoga. I could ride more because I was stretching and recovering quicker.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of me.
Yeah, it's kind of anecdotal, but yeah, that makes sense. And do you have to be careful as an instructor? You teach a few minutes. We've just got a few minutes left, I notice. Do you have to be careful about injuring yourself in yoga, doing too much of the, like hurting your wrist?
Sure, you can go too deep in any posture. I always tell people to listen to their bodies at the beginning of class. I mean, that being said, there's some yoga classes that are therapeutic, You can just, it's all very relaxed and chill. And then some places do like level 1, level 2, and then there's level 3 where you can stand on your head and do other things. But you have to know that you can do those things. And as people do yoga, or if you decide to delve into it, if you're a beginner, then just stay at that beginner level, and then you can get to the intermediate or advanced level like you, where like as an instructor, I look around the room and I focus on people that are new. I don't have to worry about you because you have a great practice, right? I know that you come and you repeatedly, so you know what postures you can get into and where you can deepen
And what I
them.
don't, that
where
is
you
an
need to-
advantage.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate the yoga as a cyclist, and I'm just really glad to have that in my life. I really
Good.
appreciate you coming to tell us about that, and I hope that other people find it encouraging that,
too.
that it can be a part of your cycling, or just if you're not a cyclist too. So, and thank you for that, for the book too.
You're welcome.
That was really special. I appreciate that.
It's a collector's item. There's only
Well,
like 8 more left. They're in my
there's
closet.
8 more left.
If
Oh,
anybody
wow.
watching this goes and looks for it, it's not on Amazon. It's an urban legend almost.
Well, thank you, Stefan, and thanks to
Thank you.
Kathleen, both teaching us different things, spin classes and yoga and writing books, and just great people in our cycling community. So that's the show tonight, and as I said, next month we'll have some other indoor type training to hopefully help you get through the end of winter and into spring and get on the road with ease after all this strength building and things in the winter, and you'll just jump right in and get on some of these rides that I mentioned earlier that are coming up in the summer. I want to mention too, I'm involved with Portland Bicycling Club, and we have discontinued our Pioneers Century, but we're having a ride in September, so look for that. Thanks for joining us. This was Psychology Today.